So Katrin, why don't you start off with just what is Fashion for Good? Why was it created? How did it come about?
So Fashion for Good is a platform for innovation. We're a hub for innovation. We're working to scale and help innovators that have tremendous solutions addressing the big problems that we face in the supply chain to scale. And we do that by bringing brands, manufacturers, retailers, suppliers together to then help those innovators to integrate those solutions in the supply chain.
And this is an actual building in Amsterdam, and behind it was CNA, the European retailer, and the CNA Foundation were behind it. What does good mean here? Bill, do you want to tell us what does good mean in this context?
I think that the idea of fashion for good is focusing on the fashion industry and the brands, as we've heard, but also imagining that what we really want to do is share with each other the best of the information, the details, and also the inspiration. So it would be good if we could have innovations that we can share among the industry so that people could share optics and views. But also we're sharing all the chemistries and all the transformations down to the molecule with each other, so that all the lists of all the chemistries we're studying to make these materials and products, and we have some, are down to the molecule. So we've created, out of Fashion for Good, the very first T-shirt in the world where 100% of the molecules have been assessed for ecological and human health, renewably powered, and so on. So this is a chance to say we do good work.
But Katrin, isn't it? There's 5 goods, right? What could you explain? I don't remember them all.
Yeah, so when we say Fashion for Good, we look at fashion in a way that not only looks good, but is good along 5 important dimensions. And that's where Bill really is the inspirational force behind it, and the Cradle-to-Cradle concept serves as a framework. So the 5 goods include good materials, good water, good energy, good lives, and good economy. And when we look at innovations, we really look at those innovations along those 5 goods. Are the materials that are being used in those innovations, are they safe? Are they healthy? Are they designed for reuse and for recycling? Is good water being applied in terms of being safe and clean and available for all? So those dimensions, those 5 goods, really are a framework that every part of the supply chain can aspire to, and that we look at every innovator to measure against those dimensions.
So you've got, tell me a little bit about how it works. You've got big companies, you have startup innovators.
Yeah.
What do they do? How do they come together at Fashion for Good? And what's your role in all this?
So the principal idea is that on the one side we have all the big companies, brands, retailers that in their quest for sustainability look for innovation. On the other side we have many innovators that often are stuck in labs. And bringing those together through learning, sharing, providing expertise, but also funding and eventually piloting allow us to scale them. And we have 3 elements in this so-called innovation platform. One is an accelerator program that really works with early stage innovators over a time frame of 3 months. We have a scaling program that works on a longer time frame to really help remove those roadblocks to scale. And then we're also working on a fund to eventually help finance those innovations in the supply chain in Asia. So this is how we're trying to bring all these different players together, as we're realizing that those challenges that we see and problems that we see in the supply chains are way bigger than one organization alone can tackle.
So why did the fashion world need another sustainability organization? It seems like there's a few, Sustainable Apparel Coalition and so on. Why did you, Bill, do you want to take this? Did you see a need for something else? What wasn't really being covered?
That's a great question. Well, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition is partner in this, et cetera. So we're actually partnering with everybody. We're just trying to fill in some of the missing pieces that people could benefit from. So for example, I think to build on what Katrin just said, if you want to look at different dye technologies, wouldn't it be great, since each company might make a bet, but it might not be the right bet necessarily for the whole industry, or they have to keep it secret because they're doing something proprietary, We're basically saying, let's all take a look at all the different dyeing techniques that are coming. Let's invest in them. Let's see what's out there. And then the companies can come in and say, wow, look at that. This one seems to be working really well. And it can start to scale because it's something worthy of the industry. That's an important part of this open sourcing of what's going on. At the other end of it, we didn't have anything that went down to the molecule. So one of the other great things about Fashion for Good that's particularly exciting for me is that as we do the cradle-to-cradle assessments with all the assessors and the scientists going into every dye down to the molecule, it's encouraging the dye companies like Huntsman, like DyeStar, and so on. They're getting cradle-to-cradle certified. Now you can go into Fashion for Good, and all the process and the technique and the companies making these healthy, safe materials are all open and public to you. So you could say, I'm going to make something that's clean and safe, and you can go quickly and get to the details all the way to the molecule. That has been, we don't have that anywhere else.
Is there an analog for this in any other sectors where this has been done, this kind of collaboration and filling in the gaps, as you call it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the one I'm working on right now is plastics, which needs a lot of help. I don't really know that we've had this one at this level.
So Katrin, you're 11 months into this now. You opened the doors in last March. What's happened since then?
We're quite happy actually with the progress that we've made. So the one dimension in terms of progress is the amount of innovators that we were able to scout, screen, and then put through the program. We have now our third batch in the accelerator starting. We have 5 companies in the scaling program, so 25 companies in total already have gone through it. We have 6 corporate partners now from different parts of the fashion sector. And we're really working hard to move those companies now from coaching to piloting to eventually scaling them. So a lot of progress has been made, but in the end, our big ambition is to really provide impact at scale and look at those 5 goods and say, in 5 years from now, this is hopefully a set of companies that really has reached broad penetration and has affected those 5 goods along the following dimensions.
Yeah.
That's what we aim for.
What's happened that you didn't see coming, that you didn't expect? Any big surprises?
Well, I think what's really new in this setup, so to your point earlier, there are other consortiums, very important ones like the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that we work closely with and complementary with. Where we are working in is an innovation space, which typically is a space in the apparel world, sportswear companies. They don't necessarily collaborate on innovation. That's R&D, you want to keep your potentially competitive advantages to yourself. We're bringing those companies together to jointly discuss their innovation priorities, where we should scout, which ones we should select. So it's a collaboration in a pre-competitive space, and those partners are really opening up and working together and extremely enjoying and benefiting from this collaboration. I would not have expected this open sharing, this collaboration in this space. That's truly amazing and extremely impressive.
I think there are a lot of people who look at this and say, fashion is inherently unsustainable, right? You're turning over the fast fashion, I don't know, 6, 8, 10, 12 times a year. There's a new line coming in. Is this really making and I'd love to hear from both of you on this, a material, as it were, difference, or are we just tinkering at the margins in this? Can you really shift the way fashion works so that from an environmental sustainability perspective, it's far from where we are today? Who wants to take that, Bill?
Yeah, let's take that. That's a good one. So I think your point is extremely well taken. The average American, I think, has 70 garments a year now. So it's pretty fierce. So I think that if you go to the beginning of the system and the design, we are right now at a point, I was just meeting with a manufacturer yesterday, they've gone from 200 days from an idea to a garment in the market down to 20. So watch this go fast. And you look at young people not wanting to wear the same blouse on Instagram 3 days in a row kind of thing, and it's everything new, and it's cheaper to get a new one than it is to clean the other one. So you're right. The system is astonishing as a machine for delivering massive amounts of stuff. All right, but that then brings us to the issue of concentration and flow. We can't manage with entropy very well. So we have clothing entropy going on, and it's this massive entropy of
It's
stuff
called
getting out.
laundry,
We have to figure out how to collect it, bring it together, and then deal with it. So a lot of the really interesting projects have to do with how to separate cotton and polyester, how to take these materials and get to reuse them. Because we're going to have people wanting to fashion, it's our nature, and then we're going to have to work with how to take that so we can refashion the fashion itself. Yeah. So it is a big, big question.
When we look at innovations and also what we hear in terms of needs where we should scout for innovation, there's 4 areas where we look for innovation. One is, if I use Bill's terminology, is to make sure there is less bad. Make sure there is, for instance, no microfiber release, that there is safe materials flowing. So looking for new dyeing technologies, making sure there is no hazardous chemicals involved. The second one is around efficiency of material use with regards to innovations that include 3D printing, eliminate waste, eliminate any dyeing approaches. But then there are also innovations that really look at at new business models that allow to increase the usage of garments, which is, if you look at fast fashion, a huge driver with regards to the pile of clothes being produced. So we look also at resale models, we look at rental models, and last but not least, we look at how can we close the loop. What kind of recycling technologies do exist to address this huge amount of more than 70% of clothes that end up in landfill. So those 2 dimensions, everything that looks at the durability, that looks at reuse, that looks at closing the loop, is really something that fundamentally can move this industry towards circularity.
It seems that there's also a key role here for educating, if we're really going to shift the direction of educating consumers here. I was told a number of years ago by somebody who's works in India supply chains for Western apparel companies that, and I may get this stat a little bit wrong, I don't know, but that the amount of water used to create let's say a men's shirt for Western markets is something like 7 or 8 times that for domestic markets. And the reason is color matching, getting those dye lots right and getting them exactly matching. And I'm thinking, why do they have to match? I mean, why wouldn't Yvon Chouinard or somebody, actually capitalize on it and saying, our shirts don't match, right? You're going to only buy one anyway, and why would you want to look like everyone else? But to me, that's a reframing for the consumer, that's saying, we don't have to have this, there's another way to buy fashion. First of all, is that part of, do you see that coming in Fashion for Good, part of your mandate?
Yeah, it is part of our mandate. What I've described so far was the B2B side, if you want, really working with the companies. But we have in Amsterdam this beautiful canal house, and part of that
that's where you're headquartered?
Where we're headquartered, yeah. Our first hub. So eventually we want to be present in more parts of the world. But in this house, there is a public exhibition where visitors can come in, learn about the challenges that the fashion industry faces, but also how they can be part of the solution, what they can do in terms of changes to their consumption patterns, what questions they could ask, how to shop differently. So bringing more awareness to the consumer side is part of our mission, and also bringing different players together to really share and learn. I
want to get to some questions in a minute, but Bill, go ahead.
Just while you were talking about the mill in India, I was reflecting on the mill that made the shirts that Fashion for Good supported. The water leaving the factory, the only water leaving the factory is evaporation. That's one. You can drink this water. Two, the power is all from solar and wind, 100%. They're renewably powered. The people are treated with dignity and grace. The materials have been assessed down to the molecule. And it's at the price point of fast fashion. It's €7. So I think that idea that Leibniz had, which was that if it's possible, therefore it exists. He did 300 pages on that one. But I think for us, it's really the job is to make it exist so we understand it is possible.
Great. Elaine, what questions do we have?
Yeah, there are a few really good questions. I'm going to start with one which is about consumers. So, there's the aspect of millennials that are trying to vote with their wallet. But then, realistically, you sort of wonder, is it realistic to think that consumers will change their behavior and what they demand? And kind of going into the design side of it, do you design so the clothing lasts as long as possible to make it fashion as a service, or design it to make it less resource intensive because of how people just behave with fast fashion?
I think there's not one single bullet solution. I think it's really addressing various levers. On the one side, the industry needs to move. There is a responsibility for the supply chain and the resources that brands are using. So that's why we're working on durability, working on alternative materials, working on safe materials, working on innovations that are more resource efficient, working on alternative materials. But then on the other side, it's also the education towards the consumers.
How much do the brands get this? I mean, I know, CNA, we're going to do by the way, I'll plug the workshop we're going to do, the three of us and Jeff Hogue from CNA and someone else
Deb from Ellen MacArthur.
Yes, of course, from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, right. How many brands, CNA's obviously gets this. They did this Cradle-to-Cradle t-shirt, which really broke some new ground. Are you hearing demand for this, or how much is it push and pull?
From joining Fashion for Good?
Yeah.
I think the fact that we have now six corporate partners in such a short time frame is a sign of demand. And there's really everybody is in discussion with us in whether it fits their priorities and another dimension, because it requires resources, it requires time and commitment to work with those innovators. Yeah. It's not you join Fashion for Good and here you get your innovations and they are implemented. It's hard work. But the upside is that you're really on the forefront. You have access to all those innovators, and you can be the first one in implementing it. So there is demand from the brand side. I just want to add one more point on the consumer side. It's interesting in the Netherlands, people now start looking at you when you eat meat. So the fact that you eat meat and you get the comment, oh well, this is very polluting to the earth. It's something that you wouldn't have thought 5 years ago. And looking at clothing, these questions are coming up now. So I think this is a trend that is happening with the millennials, but also across the board, that people are more and more concerned about a very personal item that they carry on their skin for a tremendous amount of time.
All right, 6 companies down, 994 to go, or something like that. But that's a good start. Elaine, let's get another quick question in.
Yeah, so there are a few questions, but one of them that I'd like to address is innovation. So you talk a lot about innovations that you're engaging. What do you think are the specific innovations that you find the most scalable?
Scalability is one criteria that we apply when assessing and selecting those innovators, because that's our ambition. So we look at solutions, technologies, and process innovation that can be applied in the supply chain. For example, we had in our accelerator program Eon ID, which is the first tagging system that allows for recycling eventually. We also have a 3D printing company, additive manufacturing, that puts different layers of cotton plus polymer than on it. Tamicare is the name. We have companies that have dyeing innovation using natural pigments. So all of those are processes, technologies that can be easily applied and hopefully do not require huge infrastructure changes in the supply chain. That's what we see as scalable.
Great. Well, it's been a promising 11 months, and it's a very exciting project, and look forward to seeing a lot more. We're out of time right now. We'll be doing this panel this afternoon, but for now, please join me in thanking Katrin and Bill.